our Formidable Alchemist Brotherhood podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Meg.
And today we're talking about episode 28, Father.
Summary of the episode. The Elrics come face to face with Father, and his face is familiar indeed. Powerless and amazed, Ed and Al can only watch as Father creates a new homunculus with alchemy that should be impossible.
I really like whoever does these descriptions for the episode.
Yeah, they always do a good job. Better than I do.
They're very, I don't know. It feels like you're reading the back of a novel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they actually know what they're talking about, too. I feel like sometimes I've read some, descriptions of, things on Netflix and whatever, and it's like, this doesn't fit the movie or whatever.
Or, I'll read a description on Crunchyroll, and it gives up way too much information about the episode.
Yeah. All right, well, let's just jump right into it. This is a very action-packed episode. We had a weird episode in the middle that was just like filler.
Yeah.
But the previous episode was left off. We saw Al in the Portal of Truth. Had that awesome scene, and now we're back to that. The door opens to Father's lair, and it is very creepy. There's an ominous chair in the middle, and there's things coming out of it, in lots of pipes, and I don't know, it does look like they're in some weird sewer kind of thing. Gluttony and Al and Chow Mei are there, and Al and Chow Mei are totally freaking out. Chow Mei is just so cute. Whenever I see her. And as they're checking the place out, and Gluttony's like, "Father, I'm home," or whatever.
Honey, I'm home.
Gluttony's stomach starts to he starts screaming, and his stomach starts to rip open, and we see the eye again, and envy emerges. It's totally disgusting, but also yay, it worked. Al is actually he doesn't know who that is, but he sees Ed, and you're like, "Brother, you're alive!"
Sweet reunion.
Yeah, it is very sweet.
In the manga, it's a little funnier. It's super cool and super sweet in anime, but in the manga, Al's like, "Brother," and he lifts him up by his leg because he just sees I think it's his automail foot sticking out underneath Envy, and he just hoists him up. And Ed is hanging upside down, and his bangs are just sticking straight up. It's "Oh, I'm back. Cool."
It worked. Yeah. Well, in this one, he rushes Envy aside, and we see Ling is right next to Ed, and they fist bump, and yeah, we did it.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was. Al hugs Ed, and it's super sweet because "I thought you were dead," and Ed's just "I'm sorry, I worried you," and this warms your heart how much they care about each other.
Yes.
And then Father is there, and Ed immediately looks at him and is like, "Hohenheim?" He looks exactly like Hohenheim. It's their dad. And Father notices Ed's, metal arm and leg, and that Al's in a suit of armor, and he asks if they're the Elric brothers. And Ed's like, "You don't know us?" He also asks how they know von Hohenheim, because he also knows him. And he's like, "He's our father." He's like, "Well, you don't have his last name. How is that possible?" This is when we find out that Elric is their mother's last name, which honestly, the first time I watched this, I didn't even think about that, that their last names were Elric and their dad's was Hohenheim. I was like,
yeah. Honestly, I didn't even know that Von was his first name. I thought von Hohenheim was one of those hyphenated names, So I was like, "Oh, Hohenheim's his last name." Silly me. And the reason why they took their mother's last name, well, probably for two reasons. I assume Ed wanted to take their mom's last name because he kind of disowned his father, but in the manga, Ed explains that their parents were actually never officially married, so that's why they have their mom's last name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that also like surprised me too. Like I just like never thought about that.
Yeah.
I was like,
She has a wedding band on her ring finger, I mean.
Oh, she does?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I guess
I'd have
I'll
to look
have to,
back.
yeah, next time we see her, we'll have to pay attention. Oops, minor spoiler. Might see her again in the anime.
I don't know.
And father asks where Hohenheim has been, and Ed gets mad and he's like, I don't care about that guy. Like, stop asking questions about him. And then something very surprising happens. He just touches Al's arm because it's his hand is missing. As we know, Ed tried to bring it back. I don't think we ever see it again, but nope. he just he just makes a new hand for Al, and then he heals Ed, and that seems weird because he just like heals his arm, and then he's like feeling all over him, and he's like, "Oh, your ribs are broken too," and he heals those.
You hurt anywhere else? Can I fix anything else? And Ed's just like, no, stop touching me. But in the manga, when when father is healing or fixing Al's hand, Ed apologizes to Al because he accidentally left the hand behind in Gluttony's stomach. He's like, I'm sorry, I meant to bring it back. And then he was about to confess he saw Al's physical body too, which is really funny. He's like apologizing for the hand and goes, oh yeah, and by the way, I actually saw your body, and he's interrupted by, I don't know, father or someone. He's interrupted before he can say the big thing we're all waiting for him to tell Al.
Yeah.
But save that for another episode.
I think he kind of starts to do that in the anime as well. If I remember right. But yeah, he doesn't get to it. And Ed and Al are shocked by this because there was like no equivalent exchange. Like all he did was like touch them and they were healed. He's like, how are you doing that? And Ling, who forgot about him for a second. He's just chilling. Says like, oh, he's not human. Like father isn't human.
Father sees Ling is like, oh, who's this kid? Gluttony, you can eat him. I don't really care about him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he's like, and Ed and Al are like, what the heck, and Ling is like, oh, you don't even care about people, and he's like, father hits him with, if you saw an insect on the ground, would you stop to consider it? So very very feeling guy,
Says it like it is, I guess.
Yeah. And Ed and Al, of course, are mad. They don't want their friend to be hurt, and they go after father. It's kind of fun. They're back together using their alchemy, but they're like no match for him. He like does alchemy without moving at all.
Yeah, he can. Well, he steps and does his alchemy, but he doesn't even really need to do that. He doesn't have to move. I wanted to mention a funny manga scene. Ed is about to go after father, and Ling goes, Ed, wait, it's too dangerous. We need a plan. Ed fires back, that's way too much trouble. And Ling says, haven't you ever heard of the saying, if you want to shoot the general, shoot the horse? And Ed's like, if you want to shoot the general, then you just shoot the general. He's got a point.
Yeah. And father like gets annoyed with their kind of pointless attacks, and he like does this little like steps forward, and like something happens. Don't interrupt me trying to explain this. Very serious scene. We will mention that later. Or we can honestly mention it now.
Let's mention it now. It's at the end of the volume that has this scene in it, but at the end of the manga, Arakawa I love her so much. She takes that panel with Hohenheim, or father, doing like the step forward thing, and the sound effects says something like da-doom or whatever, showing that what he's doing. And at the end, she's like, it changes the whole scene if you replace one sound effect. Instead of the da-dun sound, she adds a fart. And it's even better because the next two panels on the page, are reaction shots of Ed and Ling to Father's alchemy. And so replacing it with fart, their reactions look so priceless. And she just wrote in tiny script, "What a huge fart" at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, we'll post it if I remember. I've been so terrible lately about posting things. But
The
I'll
first time
try
I
to make
read
sure
that,
to get that one in.
yeah, I was cry laughing, and I was just like, "Why am I 5 years old?"
I am also 5, so we can be 5 together.
Okay.
Um, and so when he does his little like stepping forward thing, everybody senses it. Something changes. Like even we see Ed and Al and Ling react to it, but then also May and Scar, who are still fighting the chimeras, and then also even Hohenheim senses something. So this is where we see, like, oh, Hohenheim is not there. It is
Yeah, up to this
like
point,
this.
I was still suspicious. I was like, he's just pretending. That's gotta be Hohenheim. Come on.
Yeah, I remember like thinking that it wasn't him. Like I was like, it's not actually their dad. But you did a pretty good job of like convincing me that maybe it was, and I was like, oh, maybe. But then I was like,
Normally,
oh,
I'm
right.
not so suspicious. I want to believe the best about characters, but when it comes to deadbeat fathers, I get very,
Oh yeah, no, like I
yeah,
was throughout the show, I was always like, he's the worst.
I hate him.
Yeah, but even despite that, I still didn't think it was actually him.
It was just so confusing, and then I got intrigued by him, so yeah, I couldn't really hate him.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. We'll talk about it later, but yeah, they're both Father and Hohenheim are both interesting characters.
Yeah.
And so anyway, after Father does this, Ed and Al try to like clap their hands and like do alchemy, but they can't do it. And honestly, like it's bad, but it was kind of funny to me. Like they're just
Yeah.
like clapping their hands.
And
It
trying to
looks like
slap the
they're like,
floor.
yeah, it looks like they're like bowing repeatedly. Like I don't know. It just made me
Someone
chuckle.
should do a remix of them doing that with like, if you're happy and you know it.
Okay, I was kind of thinking the same thing. Do it.
Oh boy.
So they're kind of rendered powerless. And Gluttony captures Ling, and Envy, who is still a giant green monster, gets Ed and Al underneath his paws, I guess.
Oh, I'm so dumb. He's green with envy.
Dude, yeah. You're right. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
That's such a
Maybe I
weird.
read that somewhere. Maybe that's why it popped into my head.
Yeah. Or maybe we've discussed it already and forgot about it.
It should have
But
been more obvious.
yeah, we're both dumb.
We're both tired.
And so they've been captured, and Gluttony is going to eat Ling, but Father tells him not to because he wants to use him. And then, like, a third eye opens on his forehead, and like out drips a philosopher's stone. And
Ew.
yeah, it's pretty gross. He's gonna make Ling a homunculus, and Ed starts freaking out. It's like, no, you can't do that. Like, stop this. And he can't do alchemy, but then he still has his gun. And he grabs it, and he's like, I'm gonna shoot. But he turns around to shoot Envy, which honestly, I don't really know what he was thinking that was gonna accomplish, but
Maybe
like,
just to like momentarily phase him to get out from
yeah,
underneath him.
yeah,
I would have gone for Father personally.
yeah, same. Or Gluttony. I don't know.
You're just
Anyway.
freaked out by Gluttony. He would have been like shooting all the rounds at him.
He doesn't, because he like sees all the people again and like freezes up. And while Ed is freaking out, Ling tells Ed to stop and like, this is what he wants. He came to this country to become immortal, and he basically tells Ed like, don't interfere. And then Father drops the Philosopher's Stone in Ling's cut, and his body like starts contorting and like it's very like unnatural angles and it looks super painful.
Yep. And you can hear some cracking noises too.
Yeah, it's really gross.
Yeah. It's what's happening to him is what happened to King Bradley, like we saw in episode 26 with his origins, because he was originally a human as well. And so his body's getting torn down and rebuilt at every phase of this process.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. And then we like go, I guess, like inside his consciousness or whatever, and there's like hundreds of faces all around him. Like I think they're supposed to be the souls that are in the Philosopher's Stone. And then we see Greed appear. Not he has a different voice.
Yes, he does.
But he's Greed. And it's kind of crazy. Like Ling literally invites Greed to take over his body. And Greed is very surprised and like, why you do that? Why would you do that? You're dumb. Like you people usually fight more. And Ling is like, this is what I came to do. And he specifically mentions like Lan Fan, like she sacrificed everything for me and I don't want to let her down. And Greed's like, all right, I'm going to take control. And Ling is like, it's like, I'm not. He's a 15-year-old boy. Honestly, he's just like, I'm not concerned about losing control. I'm the future ruler of Shing. Like he's gonna be just fine.
Live forever.
Yeah, basically. And Greed takes control of his body, and then we go back out to, Ed now and everybody, and I love the transformation is like it's Ling, but like it's not Ling. It's so good.
Just his attitude and everything. Yeah.
Yep. And Ed asks where Ling is, and Greed's like, your friend checked out. And then he reveals his Ouroboros tattoo on his hand.
So Ling had an injury on his left hand, and so it was bandaged up. So the reveal is super cool because he's like, sorry, it's Greed, and he lifts up his hand and the bandage just falls off, and there's the tattoo. Also, in the manga, when this happens, Gluttony, it's actually kind of cute. He's like, welcome to the family to Greed. And Greed's like, okay, so you're Gluttony, and then that's Envy, so you're my siblings and we share the common soul. So that's an interesting aspect of that, like body, mind, and soul. So he's got Ling's body, he shares a soul with the other homunculi. So then Greed has his own mind? Is that what they're saying? And that's the only thing that's his own? Because obviously he can act independently.
I guess that makes sense, because like they're all part of Father. But then is the author trying to say the mind is like where greed, gluttony, envy, lust like come from, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, is that supposed to be like the different aspects of the mind?
Oh yeah. That's deep.
I don't know. Where do you think? Well, in your mind, like where would you think those things actually come from?
The 7 deadly sins?
Yeah.
Well, normally I'd say that's a heart issue, but obviously we're not talking about your physical heart because that's an organ. But when people talk about their quote unquote heart, they're usually talking about their feelings and things that originate in the mind.
That's true. I was thinking like all those like the things that make you feel those things are like chemicals in your body, which would be like the mind, I guess.
Yeah. And your soul is more of like the inner you, and you're human, you're not perfect. So I guess the 7 deadly sins could come from your soul, but I feel like a lot of sins can be overcome with like mind over matter. So I would categorize it more as the mind. Yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, so he reveals his Ouroboros tattoo, and Ed and Al are like, don't you remember us? And because they've met Greed, the other Greed before, and he does not remember them. He's a new Greed. At that moment, the doors open and a chimera enters, but it is dead. And then May and Scar arrive. They finally made it through all the chimeras. And it's so cute because Xiao Mei and Mei are reunited. Um, it's amazing. And in that scene, Scar's like, "Oh, Full Metal is here," and May's like, "What Full Metal? Where is he?" And he's like, "He's that little guy underneath, underneath that thing's paw." And May's dreams are crushed. She had these big fantasies of
Princely
Ed.
Ed.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, that microbe," and he's like, Who you calling a microbe, you micro girl?"
It's
Um,
awesome. It's like, okay, this episode in general is just rife with the short jokes at Ed's expense. And
mhm.
every time somebody says the word short or mini or anything like that, or pipsqueak, you just see the reaction. Like there's like this little exclamation thing that
Yeah,
comes off of his
yep.
head, and he's like, "What?" Um, and in the manga, it's very similar for May's little scenes of her fantasies of Ed. But there are slight differences, and I think it's even funnier. But there's like a panel of her not being allowed to marry Ed because she's a princess, and then um and when her dreams are crushed and she's like, really hurt and stuff, Al gets super mad. You just see his armor change entirely, like really scary. And he's like, "Ed, what did you do to that girl?" And he's like, I didn't do anything. And Ed and May call each other rice grains. And and the argument between Al and Ed is so funny. Al says, "You say those sweet things to Winry and then you turn around and do this?" And Ed says, "What? Why are you bringing up her name?" And May's just like, "I'm so hurt. I'm suing you for emotional damages."
So good. Yeah,
Honestly, I
so
just felt bad for Ed in this scene because he has no
I
clue
did.
what's
Like
going on.
that's like I feel like that's perfectly sums up just miscommunication between a guy and a girl. Like you have like this whole like idea in your head about like how things are gonna be, and then they're not that way, and the guy's like, "What?" Like,
Why are you disappointed? I don't
yeah,
understand. Because you
yeah,
never vocalized those
yeah.
feelings.
Like you didn't say anything. Yeah. Anyway, May is very upset. I think in the anime, she's like, "How could you toy with the young maiden's feelings?" Like, I felt bad for Ed, but second time around watching this, it was
It was
funny.
funny.
And she starts attacking them. She's like, "You're gonna pay for this." And Gluttony attacks Scar. Ed and Al, are freed by May's attacks. But they're like, "Oh yes, like we're gonna be able to use alchemy because May and Scar are using it." But they cannot still, and so then they start running. Like, we gotta get out of here. So the fight continues, and Ed tells Scar that Envy was the one who started the Ishvalan War to, I think, kind of get him on their side, basically. And I don't know. I just love Scar's response. He says, "I'd like to hear more details about this in between your screams." And then he says, "You don't deserve to stand by God alongside my fallen brothers. Your only solace from my wrath will be damnation." Eh, like it's ooh, he's so intense,
J.
and I'm
Michael
kind
Tatum,
of
folks.
yeah. I'm kind of here. I'm here for it. Um,
Also, Ed just like confronts him boldly. He has no fear of Scar now because it's like, I faced down Envy, who's this giant dragon-like monster,
mhm.
and we have like the mastermind behind all of this here. Scar, you don't matter anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So Scar fight continues. It's basically like the whole place is like getting destroyed. And Scar tries to hurt Father. But he literally like puts his hand on Father's face and like tries to, do his thing, and nothing happens. And then Father, I mean, doesn't look like he does anything, but Scar like jumps back and he gets very injured. We don't really see what happens. All we see is blood. So
I think it was something similar, like he does like the
Yeah, that's
deconstruction,
what I was thinking
but
too.
he dodged in time that he got wounded like badly, but he avoided like anything
Yeah,
getting
he avoided
damaged
death.
from repair. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so during this, Greed is like just chilling, like kind of watching the fight, and Father's like, get to work, help us.
Okay, pops.
Yeah, and so yeah, and he does. I think he attacks Ed if I remember right. May sees Ling then, which Greed, and she recognizes him, and she's kind of momentarily distracted. He's like, "Oh, that's Ling Yao. He's a prince of Xing,"
And she's a
and
princess of Xing, so they're technically half siblings.
yes, yes. Gluttony comes up behind May in that moment and attacks her, and she gets hurt, and so cute. Al rescues her. He like picks her up and like runs out of the room.
He's her
And
knight in shining armor.
yeah, he is. And she's a little bit sassy because she's like, I didn't ask you to save me, but he's like, you were hurt. I had to.
Like, shut up and let me help you.
Yeah. Scar, Al, and May are now trying to escape, but then there's chimeras blocking their exit, and then the homunculi come up after them, so they're kind of trapped. And it's so Al's just the best. Because he's like, Scar, can you get her out of here? I'll stay back. They're not gonna hurt me. So Scar agrees to do it, and then he like throws Al's. Well, I think he like deconstructs the water, so he makes
Hydrogen gas, yeah.
and then he takes Al's head and like throws it against the wall and like causes a spark, which causes an explosion, and they escape. But Al is left behind. It's kind of funny because he like puts his head back on. He's like, "What a rude thing to do! You could have warned me first before taking my head."
It reminds me of something like Tin Man or Scarecrow would say in Wizard of Oz, like, that was so rude. Just talking about something that would kill a normal person.
Yeah. From that explosion, Gluttony is severely injured. He cannot regenerate. He's used up his lives.
Game over, man.
Yep. And then we go back to Ed and Greed. They are fighting each other. The choreography is amazing. Like, I loved watching this.
Oh, good.
Hand-to-hand combat.
But in this show, it's even better.
It's so good. Like,
they go all out.
Yeah, you can see everything, and like it's very well put together. It's always so fun to watch. And while they're fighting, Ed is like trying to get to Ling, like, Ling, I know you're in there, like you're still here. But he doesn't seem to be getting to him. But then he says Lanfan's name, and Greed, we see that he recognizes the name. Ling is still in there. But then he like snaps out of it and he captures Ed. And then Envy brings Gluttony and Al back into the room. Ed and Al have both been captured by the homunculi once again. And Father's like, they need to be taken to Wrath, which we know is the Fuhrer. And in that moment, Ed tells Al that Ling's still alive, which, I don't know, it's so sweet. Like, he didn't give up on his friend until he knew that he was, like, still in there. And then we also see Gluttony is basically dead.
Yay!
And, yeah, so sad. That is the end of the episode.
Woo! Yeah. All right. Now that the episode's over, we've got one voice actor note. So we've already met Greed, who was voiced by Chris Patton, but this is a new Greed, so they got a new voice actor, which I guess I was a little sad to not hear, Oikawa's voice anymore. But this guy, he is, I mean, since it's a new Greed, it makes sense to get a new voice actor, and in the long run, I think that was a really good choice. And so he's played by Troy Baker, who is Yamato from Naruto, Jin Kariya from Bleach, and Joel from The Last of Us. So, he's actually mostly a video game actor, it looked like on his IMDb, but he's been in some pretty big name animes too.
Mm-hmm.
And first impressions of this new Greed, he is interesting. And it's cool to have the new voice actor. I think
Mm-hmm.
when we first watched this, I was just really sad about losing Ling.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I
Me
know,
too.
yeah, but now that we know this, like we've seen the whole show and we know Greed better, I was so hyped when this happened.
Yeah, same, same. I remember the first time, I'm pretty sure I was like yelling no at my
Yeah, I was like,
computer
Ling,
screen.
no, no,
Like,
no. We just
I,
started liking you because, at first he was kind of annoying, but he instantly grows on you after a couple of
mhm.
episodes.
Yeah, it's so, I love Ling. Like, cause like
Yeah,
at first, like there's so many emotions. Like at first you're like you're kind of annoyed and you're like, get out of here. And then you're like, oh, he's cool and he like cares about people and he would be a great king. And then he turns into,
to
well,
Greed.
to
Yeah.
greed. And
I feel like our emotions kind of aligned with Ed's in that regard because he didn't like Ling at first either.
yeah,
But then
that's true.
by this episode, he was like defending him and going, "Please don't do this. He's my friend."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, so sweet.
But
I love that.
yes, for any of you who this is your first time watching, though, we now refer to him as Greedling.
Yep. Reeling
That
is
is the
his name.
fandom's name for him.
Yes.
All right, and our favorite Ed short rant, which he got called short a lot in this one,
Mm-hmm.
was, "What did you say, micro girl?" after May insulted him.
Yeah, after May called him a microbe. Yeah.
Yep. And she's shorter than him, but she's only 11, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Oh, and we had some homunculus deaths, and that was Gluttony died at least 4 times if you count when the portal opened up in him, which I do because that like ripped him apart, which is nasty. And then Envy probably died once during that explosion.
Mm-hmm.
But he's so big, it's hard to tell if it really, affected him as much. But in the
Yeah,
manga panel, it looked like his face had gotten fried pretty bad, so I'm gonna say he died.
I agree with that.
Yeah, animation expertise. I could talk about the amazing fight choreography, but that's the whole show. So instead, I'm gonna talk about Ling's animation. It was awesome. There was a POV shot with his hair in front of the lens, which I love because it
Mm-hmm.
shows you like it's so detailed for the character's perspective. Like, yes, his bangs would be covering some of his vision. And there was that visceral animation for his transformation, which that was kind of hard to watch, but it's also really cool that they put that much into it. And then there are also slight differences with how he is portrayed when he becomes Greed. Like if you'll notice, some of the fans have said like his bangs are on the other side or something like that when he's Greed. I'm not sure. I don't pay attention to every single second in every single frame, but makes sense. Also his eyes are open and they're purple now, and he just kind of carries himself differently. Like when he runs, his hands are in his pockets the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
don't know
love
what it is
that.
about that, but that's cool.
So it's like I don't care about anything, but
Yeah,
like to the next level.
yeah.
It kind of reminds me. I think doesn't Killua do that?
Killua does that, yeah, and
Yeah.
he also
And
does like the hands behind his head thing.
oh, okay. I love that. And also I super appreciate, didn't you put that in our, I saw that somewhere. I saw that and I wanted to mention that to
Yes,
you.
I drew anxiety with his hands behind his head.
Okay, yeah. That's what I thought. I was so excited when you did that. I was like, yeah.
I'm
Even
glad you
though,
might like that.
yeah, I like that little, I like it.
And for those of you who are wondering what on earth are they talking about, we're entering the silent manga audition. Meg's writing it, I'm drawing it, and we have a character who is the personification of anxiety. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. It'll be good. We'll let you
We'll
guys
discuss
know
that if
what
it
happens.
comes up,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We'll see what happens. But anyway, that I think is all we have for the episode. Didn't really want to talk about anything else just because I feel like so much happens in this episode. So, Megan, what was your favorite line?
Mine came from Greedling. After May and Xiao Mei reunite, he claps and goes, "Oh, now that is a touching reunion right there." This made me chuckle. Oh, what
Yeah.
was your favorite line?
Mine is honestly, I feel like both of our lines are kind of along the same lines. Mine came from Father, and it's when Ling is like, "Oh, he's not human," and Father hits him with, "I would ask you who you are, but I honestly don't care." It's like, oh,
That's like Disney villain level sass.
yes, yes. And for him, like, that's just who Father is. Like, he
Yeah.
really doesn't care. Um, and honestly, I sometimes I
Sometimes
won't
agree
say
with him.
not with him at all, but just like sometimes like inner monologue.
Your
I
Your Psyche K
maybe
monologue.
yeah, I maybe have said that before, which is so mean. But
Well, you'd never say it out loud.
no, no. Anyway, what was the moral of the episode?
Don't give up on your friends, even when they go through major changes. Ed never gave up on Ling.
Yep. I loved that.
Yeah. The bromance is strong.
Yes. Who pushed the story forward?
Ed did because he told Scar about what Envy did in Ishval, and Father did because he turned Ling into greed, and obviously Ling did because he accepted greed. So we got
Mhm.
3 candidates. The birth of greed,
I,
Ling.
I was gonna say I like that you put that.
All
Birth
caps.
of
All
Greed.
caps.
Yes, that's probably my favorite part of this episode because Ed didn't get a chance to tell Al what he saw. Um,
Yeah.
so and also I'm happy that Gluttony is dead.
Vanquished. Well, not
Yes.
yet, but close
Yeah, not
enough.
yet. But he's on his way out. So honestly, like he was my least favorite character. Well, besides
Yeah.
okay, sorry, not my least favorite character. My least favorite homunculi.
Hmm.
Obviously, my least favorite character is Shao Tucker, but
We don't speak his name.
yeah, yeah, you're gonna have to cut that out.
Nah, I'll leave it in there.
All right. That was the end of the episode. We will be back next week with another one.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.